Welcome to the Crunch Time YouTube channel. Today I'm going to be discussing the 2020-2021 NBA playoffs, and I'm going to be giving my predictions for all of the games. So I'm going to start in the Eastern Conference, finish round one, then I'm going to go to the West and etc. Finish the entire playoffs. So the first series I have is Bucks versus Magic, and I think it's going to be a 4-0 sweep. Bucks win. Not much to talk about there. Vucevic versus Giannis, I guess. There's no way the Bucks lose to the Magic unless some crazy injuries happen. I still think without Giannis, the Bucks have a good chance to sweep the Magic. I don't think that's going to be a competitive series, and I think the Bucks are going to need to win this one quickly because the next few series, just a preview, it's going to be against some very good teams, and they're going to be very competitive, probably 6-7 games. So they're going to want to win this one quickly. Then I'm going to move on to Toronto versus the Nets. I have a 4-0 sweep Raptors. I feel like this could go to 5 games, knowing Kyle Lowry and the Raptors just being so bad in round one. They'll just find a way to lose one game. Like last year with Kawhi, they lost a game to the to the Orlando Magic as they let DJ Augustine have a career game against them. I could see Karis LeVert dropping 50 on them one game just to win by a game-winning shot. But I don't think it's going to go anything more than 5. My prediction is 4-0 Raptors. And the two series I brought up, they're going to be the least competitive in the entire series. That's just how the East is. The East is very top-heavy. There's not that much depth in the East. They have 4 to 5 really good teams. But after that, there's not much. With Kyrie and KD coming back next year, the East will be more competitive. But as of this year, it's going to be a very boring series. So now I have Indiana versus Miami. I have Miami winning in 6. It really depends on when Sabonis returns. If Sabonis can return earlier, I feel like Indiana has a chance. But I just feel like Miami is the better team. Even if they are the 5 seed in that matchup. I feel like Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo, Goran Dragic, Kendrick Nunn, Duncan Robinson, Tyler Hero, whatever it is. They're just so much better than the Pacers. The Pacers have been doing good though. Malcolm Brogdon, T.J. Warren, Miles Turner, Victor Oladipo. They've all been doing good, but I just don't think they have what it takes to beat the Heat. And I feel like Jimmy, he's going to be playing for something, and he just seems really motivated to win this one. I feel like he really wants to show he is better than T.J. Warren, no matter what he actually says in front of a camera. So I feel like Heat win this one in 6. It's going to be a close series no matter what. I don't think this one gets decided in under 6 games. I feel like it's a 6 or 7 game series either way. And let's move on to Boston, Philadelphia. So Ben Simmons is not going to play the entire season. That's pretty simple for me. Even if he was playing, I don't think there's a chance the 76ers win. That team is the definition of bad chemistry. That is why chemistry matters so much. Look at Miami, look at Philadelphia. Those are just two polar opposites of how no matter how much talent you have, chemistry still matters at the end of the day. I'm not taking Philadelphia to win a playoff series. They just don't have what it takes. Ben Simmons is out, but that probably is a good thing for them in my opinion. He just really hinders their offensive abilities, provides no spacing in the playoffs, and they've had to bench him a few times. He hasn't done good against Philadelphia or Toronto in the past 2 years when they've played in the playoffs. So maybe they do better, but I have Boston winning 4-1. Boston themselves are a little inconsistent. Some games they'll be able to beat the Clippers by 10-15, then the next game they'll play down to the Hawks. They're very inconsistent, but I feel like they'll be able to come on top against the Philadelphia 76ers in around 5 to 6 games. I don't think this goes to 7 games. I feel like Embiid, he might have one really good game in this series, but that's about it. Al Horford's too old. I don't trust Tobias Harris in the playoffs, and that's about it. So those are my picks for the Eastern Conference in the first round. Now I'm going to move on to the Western Conference. Now, this is where it gets interesting, and it starts off with a 1-8 series, the Lakers and Trailblazers. So The Trailblazers have been doing really good recently. Dame's been going off. He won Bubble MVP, well deserved. And Trailblazers look like they're on a mission, and especially Dame. And the Lakers, they've not been doing that great in the bubble either. You've watched a few of their games. Against the Clippers, LeBron really struggled. He has been doing better the last 2 to 3 games. But then Anthony Davis, he doesn't look like he's been playing his greatest. And also, just the role players for the Lakers, they've been really inconsistent. One day they'll be like hitting all their shots. The next day, Danny Green will go 0 for 7 from the 3-point line. They're super inconsistent. And I think the Lakers, if they want to win a championship, they need another person. They need someone else who can be a playmaker when LeBron's off the court. As when he leaves, their scoring is just so bad. There's no one is a playmaker. Everyone needs someone else to make plays for them. And their offense just looks pathetic. And that's how the Raptors were able to beat them easily. And that's how they lost to quite a few teams. They did lose to the Kings, but they should have been able to beat the Kings, or at least make it a closer game. I know LeBron and AD, they didn't play much of that game. But that's still not what you'd like to see from a team competing for a championship. But despite all I've said about the Lakers, and most of it was negative, they still have 2 of the top 5 players in the NBA. Their role players are inconsistent, but it always feels like at least one of them is clicking. So they just have to play the hot hand with that. I have Lakers in 6 against Portland. Part of me feels like I don't even think this will go to 6. I feel like Lakers in 4 or 5 is a little more realistic. But the way Portland has been playing lately, I'd be shocked to see them get swept. 5 might be more realistic prediction, but I'm really high on Portland, so I could see them taking 2 from the Lakers. So now I'm going to move on to the 2-7 matchup, which is the Clippers and Mavericks. This is a very interesting matchup, Kawhi versus Luka, and I feel like it really depends on what Kawhi and PG can do to contain Luka. Because if the Clippers' 2 perimeter defenders, which are probably 2 of the best perimeter defenders in the league at the wing position, if they can contain Luka, that really is going to cause issues for the Mavericks. He's the best player on their team. He's the playmaker. He is who they rely on in the 4th quarter. If he's going to struggle a little in those 4th quarters and he's not able to play as well, that really could be an advantage for the Clippers. And I feel like they just have so much depth they're going to eventually win. I have them winning in 5 games. I just don't see the Mavericks being able to contain PG and Kawhi. Paul George has been playing well in the bubble so far, which is good to see. Montrezl Harrell, he's also going to be back, which is good. Zubac has been playing great. Lou Will hasn't been playing as well as he was in the regular season, but hopefully he can get back to where he was. And I just have Clippers in 5. I just don't think Mavericks have a chance yet. In a year or 2, I feel like they're going to be an actual finals competitor. So let's move on to the 4-5 matchup where I have Houston, Oklahoma. I have Houston in 6. I feel like this is one of the most competitive first-round matchups, or at least entertaining. Chris Paul, Russell Westbrook. The reason I have it even going to 6 is Russ is out the first few games. Not sure how many. It could be 1, could be 3. And I feel like Oklahoma will be able to take advantage of that to some extent. But I still think Houston is the better team by far. And I think Houston is a really underrated team. I think they have like actual chances of being able to win a championship this year. So those are just my thoughts on that series. Chris Paul versus Russell Westbrook, former teams. That's always fun to see. But I have Rockets in 6. Now the last matchup of the first round, Denver versus Utah. I have Denver winning in 6. Utah, in my opinion, this might be a hot take. I think Utah's the least talented team in the playoffs in the Western Conference. I just don't see Utah being able to win. I feel like Utah in 5 might be a little more realistic, but I just had 6. I feel like Donovan Mitchell will be able to take over a little bit. Rudy Gobert might be able to have a few good games against Nikola Jokic, who I think is the best center in the league. Jokic is just a really good playmaker, and I think he'll be able to take advantage of that with the Jazz, as they played in the bubble, and that was a very entertaining game. So hopefully we'll see more games like those. But that wraps up the first round, and I'm going to move on to the second round. So I'm going to go back to the Eastern Conference, and it starts off with the Bucks versus the Heat. I have this going as a 7-game series. Jimmy Butler, Giannis, and that's going to be a very interesting matchup. A lot of people might laugh at that, but Jimmy Butler is a really good defender. And so is Bam, and the Heat have a lot of good defenders. They have Iguodala off the bench, and if they're able to contain Giannis a little, this can be really good for them. I think the Heat are a very underrated team. They have great shooting on the outside, perimeter, and so do the Bucks. I feel like this is going to be a great battle of two very good teams, but I do have Bucks coming on top in 7 games. I think it's going to be one of the most competitive series in the whole playoffs. I feel like these two teams match up really well against each other, but the Heat are going to need a second star besides Jimmy if they actually want to win a championship. Now I have Boston Raptors. I have Raptors in 6. I just don't trust the Celtics' inconsistency. And the Raptors are a really strong defensive team, but I feel like can really cause issues for the Celtics. If you play good defense against the Celtics, that team just falls apart. Like, you can say that for a majority of teams, but their chemistry is just... If they're not clicking, or if all players are struggling a little, it's just not going to work out for them. And it just feels like we're just going to miss so many makeable shots. Everything's going to start falling apart for them. Their defense starts getting weaker. Players are shooting shots that are contested, don't make sense. And it just feels like no one is on the same page. They just panic a lot, it seems. I feel like Raptors are probably the best coached team in the Eastern Conference, and that's really going to help them. I'd give the Celtics another year before I have them going to the conference finals. I just think Raptors are the best team right now defensively in the Eastern Conference. So I have them coming on top in 6 games. Now let's move on to the Western Conference. So I have the Lakers beating the Rockets in 7 games. This might be more controversial, but I really think the Rockets are a very good team. And with Russell Westbrook, he's going to be back at that point. LeBron is going to get tired. He's 35, 36 years old, and he's going to be running a lot. The Rockets are a very fast-paced team, and with their three-point shooting, they move very quickly. It's up and down the court. A lot of points are going to be scored in that series, and the Lakers need to start shooting better. There's no way you can beat the Rockets with poor shooting, and we've seen a few games that the Rockets have played here in the bubble where it's been nail-biters, and it depends on who has been shooting better. That's who wins the game. So, now I'm going to move on to the Clippers versus Nuggets, as I have the Lakers winning in 7. So now to continue, I have the Nuggets and Clippers. This is the last matchup I have to mention before I move on to the conference finals. I have the Nuggets losing in 6 games to the Clippers, as I have the Clippers coming on top. I feel like this is simple. The Nuggets are a really good team, but I just don't think they have what it takes to stop Kawhi or PG. It's just as simple as that. I do think it's going to be an interesting series, though, just to see what Jokic can do against them. But I don't think the Nuggets have the depth to keep up with the Clippers. And that's going to cause problems much later in this series, like in games 4 through 6. I feel like the Clippers' depth is really going to help them. So now I move on to the conference finals. And first, I'm going to mention the Toronto Raptors versus Milwaukee Bucks. So my 2 matchups are the Bucks versus Raptors and the Lakers versus the Clippers. And in my first matchup with the Bucks versus Raptors, I have the Raptors coming on top in 7 games. I have the Raptors winning again to the Bucks in the conference finals, and I think the Raptors still have the potential to make the finals. The Raptors are still a very good team, and even with the loss of Kawhi Leonard, they have been able to play very well. I feel like they had a better winning percentage this year than the year before without him. And I know that's a regular season, but I do trust this team. Nick Nurse is a great coach, and I really think that he can help this team make the finals again. I don't think Giannis is going to be able to get through the Raptors wall that they built last year with Marc Gasol, Serge Ibaka, Pascal Siakam. And instead of Kawhi, they do have OG Anunoby. And I think we all know OG Anunoby is not at Kawhi's level, but OG is still a very solid defender. So I feel like Giannis is really going to struggle there. And when Giannis is doing bad, the whole team is doing bad for the Bucks. There's no, like Chris Middleton, people think he's top 10. That's just stupid. His success is totally relied upon that Giannis is literally a monster. He's unguardable, and you have to just put all your focus on him. Like, if you're telling me Chris Middleton or Giannis, who are you going to try to stop? You'd be stupid to say Chris Middleton. Giannis is just that good. And that's why I have the Raptors coming on top. I feel like they can stop Giannis. And if you can stop Giannis, you can stop the Bucks. Next is the Clippers versus Lakers. This series is probably the most debated series of all, like, this entire year. Many have said Lakers, many have said Clippers, but in my opinion, the Clippers are the better team. The depth is better, the stars have been playing a little more consistently, and I just feel like they match up against the Lakers really well, just because their shooting is very good, and I don't think the Lakers can match the Clippers' shooting. Also, the Clippers lost by 2 points against the Lakers in the bubble. That was without Harrell and Lou Williams. Harrell might struggle in the beginning when he does come back, but he'll be ready by the time he plays the Lakers. He'd have played like 2 series already, probably around like 10 games or so. So I feel like that would be enough for him to get ready to play the Lakers. And I think the Clippers will have success this year against the Lakers. Going to be interesting to see what happens next year. I have Clippers in 6. I don't have us going to 7. I just don't think either team is going to... Just doesn't feel like a 7-game series. It feels like whoever can take the momentum early is going to win. I could see like Clippers winning the first 2 games, then Lakers winning the next 2, and then Game 5 decides who wins the series. That's very likely what could happen, and that's what I do see happening. So I have Clippers in 6. So now let's move on to the finals. Clippers, Raptors, Kawhi versus his former team. If anyone is going to play the Raptors this year, it would be most entertaining to see it be the Clippers, not the Lakers, just because Kawhi versus his former team. What a great storyline that would be. That would really be interesting to see. But I do think the Clippers do end up coming on top. And after 6 games, the Los Angeles Clippers win their first championship. I just think they have the best depth in the NBA. 2 of the best perimeter players. 2 of the best wings. Great interior guys. Montrezl Harrell, Zubac. Morris is even good too. We have forwards who could shoot. We have Patterson, Green, Shamet's a great shooter. Pat Bev is a crazy good defender. And I just think Clippers will end up coming on top. I could see Raptors take like the first 2 or 3 games and then Clippers just win the next 3. But those are my predictions. I am going to put up my bracket at the end just so you guys can see, as I doubt many of you guys remember what I said in the beginning about like what the Bucks are going to do against the Magic or Raptors versus Nets. So I'm going to put that up, and I'm just going to summarize everything I've already said, and I'll wrap up the video. So now that I have discussed all the playoff series, here's just a picture of my bracket so that we can just look at everything all together. So as you see, there's like the number 4 in between Milwaukee and Orlando. That's just how many games I think the series will take. That's pretty self-explanatory. So comment below who you think will win the finals, and comment below which one of my picks you disagree with the most, while it being the Clippers winning in 6, the Raptors beating the Bucks. Any of these picks, let me know which you disagree with the most. And also let me know your biggest upset, as this is just really interesting to look at what different people think any team is capable of doing. As we all know in the playoffs, if any team is clicking and is doing really good, they have a legit chance to win. So comment all those things below, and thanks for watching and have a great day.